Hey guys, what's up? It's Ethan again, and this is Politics, Sports, and Bullshit as usual. Um, today, last night, I should say, was the State of the Union. Um, President Obama took his time and made a 70-minute speech. Um, Watched most of it, I must admit. Um, Overall, I was pretty impressed. It seemed a lot like a campaign speech directed at moderates, but what are you going to expect in an election year? Um, at first I was kind of aggravated with what he was saying about race to the top, education funding, and stuff like that. Um, you know, Teachers, no matter how good or bad they are, don't deserve to be laid off. They have obviously put enough money and time into learning to become a teacher that they need to recoup some of that. And at the low amounts the teachers get paid, they need to be um, in a stable job. They need to be able to be supporting a family while still doing what they enjoy. Whether or not they're good at it, I mean, that's not up to the state or the federal authorities. I think that's up to the principal and the local authorities to eventually decide if they're going to keep a teacher through a school year. I also don't think it's a great idea to fire a teacher in the middle of the school year. Kind of messes things up for kids. Obviously, there are some circumstances where you have to do that. Um, Horrible circumstances like sexual assault, stuff like that, harassment, stuff that you just can't tolerate. But if it's for poor performance, I don't think you should be able to, just kick a teacher out in the middle of the year. Um, Otherwise, I think what the president said was pretty, in line with what I think the country should be going forward with. Tax credits for businesses that, you know, um, use clean energy, um, promote job growth, stuff like that. I think it's a great idea, except I think that the tax credit should be smaller for bigger businesses than there are for small businesses. Boost growth in the small business area and let that be the deciding factor on where jobs come from. I think the jobs should either be coming from the government or they should be in the small business sector. I don't think that I think it's been proven over and over again that you can't really trust the big manufacturers anymore with jobs. Um, Granted, we did give them a lot of money, so they probably keep those jobs at least for a while. And the whole thing about jobs coming back to America, I think was a great motivator. Um, and using the example of SEAL Team 6 to um, promote the message of bipartisanship, I think was a great tactic by the president. I think he picked out a great example of how teamwork really works, um, the way it has seemed not to in Congress. He basically called out Congress and said, you know, the ball is in your court, and it's up to them to get a bill passed and on the president's desk by the time he leaves office, whether that be January 20th, 2013 or January 20th, 2017. Um, I'm hoping the latter. Um, Other than that, I think what the president said was right on Iran. I think what he said on taxes, you know, distributing the wealth better, I think that's a great idea. If you look at a couple articles, one being in the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, um, talking about how Romney's uh, tax returns showing that he paid a 13.5% tax rate on his income last year, compared to a 25% tax rate on the average teacher. You're going to tell me that 25% of a teacher's income should be paid in taxes compared to a multimillionaire's income being taxed only 13.5%. It doesn't make sense. You know, people need to be accepting the fact that, you know, just because these people, you know, can't hold their own doesn't mean that they need to be impoverished more. I don't even know if that made sense, but people who are already in hard economic times should not be put into harder economic times by being taxed more. The people who can actually support this country need to be supported more, need to be more supportive. But anyways, you know, the State of the Union's always a State of the Union. President did his kissing babies afterwards, and you know that's politics. But overall, I think the speech was pretty good. Um, obviously, the Boehner was stone-faced the entire time. Ron Paul was obviously um, not exactly quick to clap. Um, it was obvious that the messages of bipartisanship actually did get through to most Republicans, you know, excluding the Ron Pauls, excluding the John Boehners, um, the guy who looks like Mike Krzyzewski. Um, but overall, I think it was a great speech. I think the president is going to win a lot of moderates over with that speech alone. It's just a matter of if it holds all the way through November when the general election comes. Anyways, it's 6.5 minutes into the video, and I haven't even talked about what I wanted to talk about. Um, Sports. You know, a third of this crappy channel of mine is, you know, sports. So obviously, you can tell right here and right here, I'm a huge Maryland fan, huge Terps fan, also a Georgetown basketball fan. Go Hoyas, go Terps, Fear the Turtle, Hoya Saxa, everything like that. I'm actually going to be going to the Georgetown Pitt game up in Pittsburgh on Saturday. I haven't gotten to a Maryland game this year, probably won't get to one, but you know, it's 3 hours from here, so it's a little easier to get to Pittsburgh. But I'm also a huge DC sports fan, as you can tell. Capitals shirt on. Um, everybody that's a hockey fan saw that Matthew Perreault scored a hat trick last night against the Stanley Cup champions without Alex Ovechkin in the lineup. I think that was a great thing for you know, Dale Hunter being a new coach. I think that really boosted his confidence in his team. Um, obvious that line was clicking. You know, the uh, Perreault, Semin, Knubel line, I think is what it was. I think it was Perreault, Semin, and Knubel. I think that line clicked well. I think that the entire team played well. I still would like to see improvement at goalie. Don't think Vokun is the answer. Don't think that Neuver's the answer. I think that was proved obvious. I think Neuver's irresponsibility, not being unreliability was proved in the Pittsburgh game last week or last Saturday. But I think it's a good sign for the Caps that they have people who can back up Ovechkin and Semin and the guys who need to produce when they're not producing, obviously, like Ovechkin is now. Um, you know, I think that. Well, I'll stop on hockey. Um, the Terps play tonight basketball, men's versus Duke. It's our big rival. Um, coming on now, actually. Would trying to maybe watch this while I do it. Looks like a yellow out, a gold out at Comcast Center tonight. Sorry. Um, tonight's the dedication of the court to Gary Williams. Um, trying to catch a starting lineup real quick to see if Alex Len is playing. Kind of hoping he is. Not sure if he is though. I've heard that he's hurt. Haven't really been paying a lot of attention to college basketball this year. It doesn't look like he's playing. It looks like it's going to be Panky. Yeah, Panky. Um, Anyways, I love what the Terps have been doing this year. I think Mark Turgeon's a great coach. I think that he needs to get a lot more respect than he's been getting. I think that what he's done with this young program is pretty impressive. It just tipped off, actually. Um, I think that Alex Lem, if he stays healthy, will be an excellent player for us in the next 3 years if he stays. Um, Terrence Stoglin, obviously, Terrell Stoglin, he's an amazingly quick, amazingly gifted scorer, just a great point guard. Probably will play at the next level. Um, you know, there are a lot of NBA teams that could use a slashing point guard like him. Uh, the Hornets being one. Obviously, Grievous Vasquez is there now, another Maryland alum, and he's not exactly the quickest. Um, uh, but anyways, one more thing I want to touch on with sports. Again, I'm a huge DC sports fan. There were rumors going around, especially on the Nationals Insider by Adam Kilgore on the Washington Post, that the Nationals were closing in on a deal with Prince Fielder, who I like to call uh, uh, PF Flyer. I saw that on a blog that I read, and I think that I think it's pretty ironic that they call him PF Flyer mainly because he's one of the slowest players in the MLB. Um, I think that I'm amazingly happy that we didn't get him. I think the Nationals will be much happier with Adam LaRoche at at first base. Adam LaRoche at second base. That's funny. Um, I think that with Chris Marrero also in there, if he can stay healthy, that'd be great. Change of pace guy. It's just a matter of whether or not LaRoche can stay healthy, and if he stays healthy, expect the Nationals to be a wild card contender this year. I think that the Nationals are going to be an interesting team to watch this year. So I've already rung up 12 and a half minutes of your time. I'd like to say goodbye now. Again, I'm probably going to do a comment response video on Saturday or Sunday. Probably Sunday because I'll be in Pittsburgh until Sunday afternoon. Again, leave your comments down there. Um, Again, I'm open to anything. Um, be derogatory to me if you want to, like Rich Pence, the guy in the last video did. Um, Call me hot like Brandon did. Anyways, that's it. Peace.